10 R&B groups that were forced to pretend they liked each other. 10 R&B groups who stood shoulder to shoulder under the lights and could not stand each other in the hallway. I want to be precise about what this list is. This is not gossip. Every name here made music that people still play at weddings and funerals. Music that carried whole decades on its back. And every one of them made that music while something was breaking between them that the audience was never allowed to see. Some of them were fighting over money. Some were fighting over billing. Some were fighting because a label decided one voice mattered more than the others and let the rest figure out what that meant. They all had one thing in common. They kept the harmony intact anyway, every night, on camera, for years. That is a kind of labor nobody put in the liner notes. Let me tell you what it cost. Number 10, Dru Hill. Before I tell you about the fight, I need to tell you about the boy. James Green, Woody, joined Dru Hill when he was 15 years old. 4 kids from Baltimore who named themselves after Dru Hill Park, singing 4-part harmony in a city that had never really been given credit as an R&B town. Larry Jazz Anthony, Tamir Nokio Ruffin, Mark Andrews, who the world would come to know as Cisco, and Woody, they signed to Island and released their debut in November of 1996. It went platinum inside of 7 months. In My Bed spent 3 weeks at number 1 on the R&B chart and reached number 4 pop. Never Make a Promise, Jazz on Lead, Not Cisco, spent 4 weeks at number 1 R&B and went to number 7 pop. Their second album, Enter the Dru, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard album chart. 4 voices, 4 leads. That was the whole design. And then the design stopped being the design. By 1999, the label and the management were building everything around one member. Cisco was featured on the Wild Wild West record and given the center of that enormous video, and on that video set, Woody quit the group. Cisco went solo. Unleash the Dragon sold more than 5 million copies, more than any Dru Hill album ever had. And the group that had been built on 4 equal voices came back as something else. Dru World Order in 2002 became the first Dru Hill album that did not go platinum. Here is the part that tells you the truth of it. In 2008, they went on the radio in Baltimore, together, to announce a reunion. Live, on the air, Woody quit for the second time. Nokio put hands on him. The clip went everywhere. 9 years of publicly holding it together, and it fell apart in a radio booth in the city that made them. If Dru Hill was on rotation in your house growing up, you already know which song is playing in your head right now. Number 9, Xscape. Just give it good, just give it good, just Candy Burris, was the youngest one in the room. She was also the one who could write. That matters, and I want you to hold it, because it explains everything that comes later. Xscape came out of Atlanta. Candy, Tamika Tiny Cottle, and sisters Latocha and Tamika Scott. Jermaine Dupri found them. They were the very first act signed to So So Def. Their debut, Hummin' Comin' at Cha, came out in October of 1993, hit number 3 on the R&B albums chart and number 17 on the Billboard 200, and went platinum. Just Kickin' It went to number 1 on the R&B chart and number 2 on the Hot 100. 3 platinum albums before it was over. 4 black girls from Atlanta with church in their throats, and behind that, a rehearsal room that got turned upside down. Tiny has told this story publicly. There were 2 real fights inside Xscape. She and Candy had one. Candy and Latocha had the other, and by Tiny's account, it was a full fist fight in a rehearsal hall, and it had been coming for a long time. The dispute underneath it depends on who is telling it. Latocha has said the resentment started because she was singing lead on more of the records. Candy has said the group's management showed favoritism, management being Latocha's partner at the time. 2 accounts, 1 group, same stage. Candy walked away and stayed away for the better part of 20 years. When they finally came back together in 2017 for the BET Awards and a reunion run, the cameras came with them, and the world watched 4 grown women try to negotiate something that had never actually been resolved. And I will say clearly what most people won't. A rehearsal hall fight does not happen between people who have a small disagreement. That happens between people who have been swallowing something for years. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's 1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 8, B2K. 4 teenagers from California who could actually dance. Not choreography adjacent. Dance. Omari Granberry, Jarrell Houston, Demario Thornton, Drew Frederick, Omarion, J Boog, Raz B, Lil Fizz. They came together on New Year's Eve of 1999, and inside of 3 years, they were the biggest young R&B act in America. Their self-titled debut hit number 2 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the R&B chart. Bump 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 went to number 1 on the Hot 100 in February of 2003, 1 week, the only number 1 they would ever have, and they never made the top 10 again. They were kids. That is the thing people forget. They were kids in a machine. In 2004, around the release of You Got Served, their manager announced the group was over. Fizz, Raz B, and J-Boog put out a joint statement ending their professional relationship with that management and said plainly that they wanted to be treated fairly. Omarion stayed with the same management and went solo. That is the split. 3 on one side of a door, 1 on the other, and a movie in theaters where all 4 of them were still smiling. What followed was harder. Raz B publicly alleged he had been abused by that manager as a teenager. The manager has denied it, firmly and repeatedly. The other members disputed the allegation at the time and pointed to money as the reason for the breakup. I am not here to adjudicate that. I am here to tell you that 4 young men who had been through something enormous together spent the next 15 years unable to be in a room. And then in 2019, they went back out on tour anyway. Raz B left that tour fewer than 10 shows in. They are touring together again now, in 2026, and they talk openly about forgiveness. I think that is worth saying out loud, because most of these stories don't get that ending. But between 2004 and now, there were 2 decades of pretending, and nobody ever paid them for that part. Number 7, Guy. Teddy Riley did not just make songs, he made a genre. That is not a fan's exaggeration, that is the historical record. Riley, Aaron Hall, and Timmy Gatling formed Guy in 1987. Gatling left after the first album, and Aaron's younger brother Damian took his place. Their self-titled debut sold over 1 million copies and was certified double platinum, and the sound on it, the swing under the drum machine, the gospel scream over the programming, became New Jack Swing. Every R&B record for the next 6 years was standing on it, and they were broke. A year after the debut, they fired their manager over money they said had been taken from the group. Aaron Hall was so wrecked by it that he refused to sing on half of their second album, The Future. Riley had to take the leads himself to finish the record. Hall said later that they were the biggest group in the world and flat broke, and that it just became too depressing to sing. Sit with that. The man who defined the vocal sound of an era would not open his mouth in the studio. Guy came apart in the early 90s. Riley has said his decision came after his best friend was killed, and none of his bandmates came to the funeral. Riley built Blackstreet. Aaron Hall went solo. And then, the way this business works, they reunited. They recorded again in 2000. They played shows. They took bows together. The producer Rico Love has told the story of running into Aaron Hall in an airport in Indianapolis and being told flatly that Hall hated Teddy Riley. They had performed together that same weekend. That is the whole video in one sentence. Standing ovation on Saturday. The truth in a terminal on Sunday. And whether the audience deserved to know that or not, I think you already have an opinion. Number 6, New Edition. Five boys from the Orchard Park projects in Roxbury. That is where this starts. Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, Ronnie DeVoe, Ralph Tresvant, and Bobby Brown, formed in 1978 when some of them were barely old enough to be out after dark. Candy Girl went to number 1 on the Black Singles Chart in May of 1983. It knocked Beat It out of the top spot. Think about what that means. Five kids from Boston Public Housing displaced Michael Jackson at the height of Thriller. Then, Cool It Now, number 1 R&B in November of 1984, number 4 on the Hot 100 that January. Their second album went double platinum. They became The Blueprint. Everything that came after, every boy band of the next 20 years, is downstream of those five, and they were falling apart in real time. Bobby Brown was growing up faster and louder than the format allowed. His parts got shortened. He pushed back. In Oakland in 1985, it stopped being an argument and became a physical fight on stage between Brown and Bivins, a mic thrown in front of an arena. In December of 1985, under pressure from the label and management, the group voted him out. Tresvant has said he tried not to participate in that vote. Bivins has said, decades later, that they were wrong to do it. But here is the detail that belongs on this list. The video for Count Me Out was shot after Brown was gone. His voice is still on the record. They never removed it. So in the video, Ricky Bell stands there and mouths Bobby Brown's parts. Four young men on camera performing a song sung by five, pretending the fifth was never in the room. That is not a metaphor. That is a literal instruction somebody gave to teenagers. I know. I felt the same way when I found it. Number 5, Destiny's Child. Four girls from Houston who had been singing together since they were 9 years old. Latavia Roberson met Beyonce Knowles at an audition in 1990. Kelly Rowland and LaToya Luckett came in. They were girls' time before they were anything, and they spent a full decade, grinding in Houston before the world knew a single name. Say My Name was released in October of 1999. All four of them are credited as writers on it. All four of them sang it. It spent 3 weeks at number 1 on the Hot 100 and won 2 Grammys in 2001, Best R&B Song and Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group. That record is the sound of 4 voices that had known each other since childhood. In January of 2000, the group's manager, Beyoncé's father, brought in 2 new members. In February, the video for Say My Name premiered. LaToya Luckett has said publicly that she found out she was out of Destiny's Child by watching that video. The song was hers, her voice is on it, her name is in the writing credits. And the women on screen singing her parts were 2 people she had never worked with. Let me be clear about what I am saying. The label did not pull the single. The credits stayed. The Grammy went to a record that 4 women made, presented by a group of 3. Luckett and Roberson later sued. It settled, and for years after, everyone involved had to give interviews, attend the same rooms, and perform being fine. The good news, and there is some, is that they got to the other side of it. There are photographs from 2023 of all of them together, laughing. It took 23 years. Number 4, TLC. You know this song. It has been in your life so long you don't remember learning it. But knowing a song and knowing what it costs to make it are 2 different kinds of knowing. Let me give you the second one. Fan Mail came out in February of 1999. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 318,000 copies in its first week, spent 5 weeks at the top, and went 6 times platinum. No Scrubs went to number 1 on the Hot 100 and stayed 4 weeks, 3 Grammys. And I want to close a circle for you before I go on. No Scrubs was co-written by Candy Burris and Tiny Cottle, the same 2 women from number 9 on this list. The Atlanta writing rooms of the 90s were smaller than people realize. Now, Lisa Lopes. Left Eye's raps appear on 3 of the 17 tracks on Fan Mail. 3. On a TLC album. She said publicly, in an interview with Vibe in 1999, that she could not stand behind the project. Then in November of 1999, Entertainment Weekly published a letter from her. In it, she challenged Tion Watkins and Rosanda Thomas, T-Boz and Chili, whom she referred to by nicknames I'm not going to repeat in a tribute, to a 3-album set called The Challenge, due to the label by October of 2000, with a suggested prize of $1.5 million, winner determined by Billboard. She published that while they were on tour together. The Fan Mail Tour was their first road run in almost 5 years. 17 American shows in 1999 and a global leg after it. Every night, Three women walked out to arenas full of people who had grown up on them, performed songs about sisterhood, and went back to separate rooms. And if this is the first time you're hearing that, that is not your fault. But it does not have to stay that way. Lisa Lopes died in April of 2002. They had reconciled by then. I am glad about that. I am also aware that the reconciliation had to happen at all. Number 3, the Supremes. Florence Ballard founded this group. I want that said first, and said slowly, because it is the fact that history is most comfortable losing. She was a girl from the Brewster Douglas projects in Detroit. She brought in her friends. When Berry Gordy told them to change their name, they wrote options and put them in a hat, and it was Florence who reached in and pulled out the word Supremes. She sang on 16 top 40 singles. People who were in those rooms, Mary Wilson among them, said Florence had the most powerful raw instrument of the three. Etta James in her chest. And by 1965, she was a background singer on records she had made possible. The favoritism was not subtle. It was strategy. Gordy was building a star, and the other two women were increasingly furniture around her. Florence took it the hardest, and she started drinking, and the more she struggled, the more it was used as the reason. Here is the night. July 1967, the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Just before the group is due on stage, Berry Gordy takes hold of her arm and tells her that if she walks out there, he will throw her off. She later described it plainly. She could not fight any longer. Cindy Birdsong was already standing there. Birdsong changed into Florence Ballard's costume and went on in her place. The audience saw three Supremes that night. They did not know one of them had been swapped in a hallway. The group was renamed Diana Ross and the Supremes. Florence's solo deal went nowhere, and she was dropped. She raised 3 daughters. She went on welfare. She was in the middle of putting her life back together. She had a house again. She was singing again. She was talking to labels again. When she went into Mount Carmel Mercy Hospital in Detroit complaining of numbness, she died the next morning, February 22, 1976, coronary thrombosis. She was 32 years old. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988, 12 years after she was buried. The first woman to be inducted posthumously. That is what I meant when I said one of these was arranged. Number 2, The Temptations. David Ruffin was not the original lead singer. He was the replacement. He came into the Temptations after Elbridge Bryant left, and he stood in the back until Smokey Robinson watched him sing and decided to write something for that voice specifically. What Smokey wrote was, "My Girl." It went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on March 6, 1965, the group's first. The first Temptations single with Ruffin on lead. 60 years later, it is still one of the most recognized recordings ever made by anyone. And I want to be precise about this. After that, Ruffin was the sound of the group. Not a member. The sound. He knew it too. He began pushing for the billing to change, for them to become David Ruffin and the Temptations, the way Motown had done for Diana Ross. He also began demanding an accounting of where the group's money was going, which made him a problem for more people than just his bandmates. And he had started using cocaine, and he started missing things. In June of 1968, he skipped an engagement at a supper club in Cleveland to watch his girlfriend perform. That was the end of it. On June 27th, the other four Temptations drew up legal paperwork and fired him. Dennis Edwards was hired the following day. Now here is the part that puts this group on this list. Ruffin did not go away. He kept turning up at Temptations concerts. He would come out of the audience, take the microphone, and take the show. And the four men on that stage had to keep the harmony going around a man they had legally removed, in front of a crowd that was thrilled to see him. Think about the discipline that takes. Think about the humiliation on both sides of it. David Ruffin died in Philadelphia on June 1, 1991. He was 50 years old. Some artists give everything to the culture. The culture does not always return the favor. #1, the Jacksons. They were brothers. That is what makes this the hardest one on the list. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, Randy, and Michael, boys from Gary, Indiana, who had been performing together since childhood. Who had already lived through Motown, already lived through the split to Epic in 1975, the one Jermaine did not come along on, because he stayed behind at Motown and did not speak to his brothers professionally for years. And by 1984, one of them was the most famous human being alive. The Victory Tour ran from July 6th to December 9th, 1984. 55 concerts, roughly 2 million people. It grossed in the neighborhood of $75 million and set the record for the highest grossing tour ever staged at that time. It was the only tour all six brothers ever did together. It was named after the album Victory. They did not perform a single song from it. Marlon has said plainly that Michael refused to rehearse or perform any of it. Michael did not want to be there at all. Marlon has said the brothers needed the income and Michael did not, and that it took their mother, Catherine, and the fans to talk him into going. So here is what a Jackson Stadium night actually looked like in 1984. 6 brothers staying on different floors of the same hotel, refusing to speak to each other in the cars on the way to the venue. Business meetings that had collapsed into factions, with 2 lawyers representing Michael's interests, a separate lawyer for Jermaine, and one more for the other 3. At one point, Michael was placed under medical care, exhausted and dehydrated from the strain of fighting with his own family. And then, every night, they walked out and did the Jackson 5 medley. I Want You Back, I'll Be There. Songs about love and staying together, sung by children who had become men who could not be in a room. On December 9, 1984, at the final show in Los Angeles, Michael told the crowd it was the last time they would perform together. By several accounts, his brothers found out the same way the audience did. Michael gave his share of the money to charity. The European and Australian legs were canceled. The Jacksons, as a performing group, were finished. And the damage lasted the rest of his life.